I've got this. I see. I'm sitting here because I was ready to do my da 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 da. I've got this bag. It says very bright purple, and what you're supposed to do is put your life savings into it because this feature is so worth it. So I would like anybody to put anything and everything they can. I suppose even change, but that would be more difficult to transfer to her in the Chicago handshake. But everybody give something for a phenomenal feature this evening. And we're just going to go straight into the feature. So ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for a great performance from Susan Moss. Come on!
And you respect is great. Perfect. The most perfect thing that I was seen. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't see you so well, so you can hear me. I went through a lot of poems and decided to pick some from different times in my writing. All of them by little, I would say, themes. So I'm going to start out with a few that are local, and you'll recognize some of these in the sense of you've been there or done that yourself. The first one is CTA. And by the way, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Hey, thank you.
CTA. This is the usual run, mostly on time, mostly uneventful, except for the landscape of bobbing heads of humanity who ride the train south to Chicago destinations, downtown or beyond. No one catches a stranger's eye. Some stare into books and swing newspapers. Others talk in garbled conversations, competing with rail screech or recorded announcement for the next stop. A woman, bundled in fleece vest, plaid wool jacket, and hooded head, resembling a 12th century monk on a warm April day, bends over as if in prayer. At Belmont, a young gum-cracking mother gets on, pushing a stroller with sleeping child who's oblivious to the pink bubbles she pops, or her bored glance over heedless passengers. No one seems to notice a snoring man slumped over a cane, his body bulging between two seats while he grips a ripped plastic bag. Another man, dressed in white shirt and crooked tie, weaves down the aisle as he shouts God's praises and offer of salvation. It's all here, our stories left unspoken, small gestures ignored and forgotten before each of us exits.
Lovely.
And this next one, you probably have seen this woman or this kind of woman, unfortunately, on some of the corners in the Chicago area. This woman actually was on Wells and North Avenue. ID. A dark, crumbled heap garnished with faded rags and square mouth spilling profanities in a deep, harpy voice, sat on a mid-city corner. Her convoluted cries called to no one, but unwilling witnesses, we were caught in a precious, precarious balance between our own internal hells and her nightmares oozing into day. Oblivious to glass and steel towers or carbon-coated sky, she squawks her truths, fired by the other side of vanity and desire. A place somewhere far from the sun, and so I see weeping, lest, like a strong wind that sucks life from the earth, we fly away and can't return. This next one was written mostly when I was waiting and waiting and waiting to be called or not to be called to jury duty. It's called captive. Potential jurors slump and read, play games on their smartphones, stare at the ceiling while corralled in a room lined with chairs and vending machines at the circuit court building, where all look resigned to the summons, exalted as civic duty. A chance to ponder and define, judge and declare. Here in the holding pen, air conditioning blowing more noise than sporadic turning of book or newspaper pages, I have a growing desire to motor with sightseeing boats on the Chicago River 2 blocks away, ride in scuttling cars far below, or slice wedges with a lone falcon skimming the air drafts. An ambulance's siren drifts up the concrete canyon and reconnects me to this place as I watch 3 brown spiders zip along their bungee cords, stopping for aerial aerobatics on spun threads outside the 17th floor window. And something a bit more political. Another city reminded me of these things. Beyond the Potomac. Lincoln sits in stony silence with sleepless glaze, while American soldiers, shrouded in ponchos and helmets, stride the Korean monument near a black wall sanctifying thousands who might have wondered, had they lived past Vietnam, what message this dark statement could offer those remembered in a registry at the laurel-crowned spectacle for the bloodied honor of World War II. And this spring, a hawk swiped a sparrow, and last night, a coyote got the Wilson's dog. Destruction flies on fragile wings or stalks with hungry defiance through our neighborhoods and lives, as we wonder what fear looks like and how to measure it in a form easy to grasp when carnage howls at our doorstep. And another type of political comment about what's disappearing before our eyes, looking down. Once in a while, it's useful to fly over Kansas and points west. Greens and browns paint a landscape puzzle plentiful in another time, before spiraling grass and steel, knit together by endless concrete, peppered with parking meters, too small to glimpse from my cabin window, and too distant to hear progress bulldozing the future, far from fresh air, that still blows over the last prairies and farms, quickly disappearing through the clouds. This next one is based on an experience in Vermont, where every spring, right about this time, little salamanders, little yellow and head for the vernal pools. Unfortunately, they only do it at night when cars cannot see them. So some people go out with their flashlights and look for these little creatures and then lift them up and walk them gently and carefully across the road and plop them down, and then they take off, not the people, but the salamanders, to the pools. It's called Spring Rendezvous. 150 million years ago, yellow-spotted salamanders crawled among the dinosaurs, searching for vernal pools to mate in frenzied love, seeding new generations, now prompted by an April New England night. We wait for wriggling progeny, survivors of Brontosaurus and mythical fire, as they migrate from forest and carry them to the other side of a dark country road, beyond speeding cars, to spring ponds tucked among maple and pine. part of a cycle longer than we can remember, and greater than our efforts to save them. And I imagine some of you have tried doing phrastic poetry, the idea of writing to some piece of art, and it could be a photograph or something like that. This one is based on a lovely photograph by a woman named Jean Marc, and her piece is called Tranquility, and this is my response to her. Viewpoint. We walk among sea oats swaying on lake breeze while glistening waves unfold at shore's edge. Gulls swoop and glide, an aerial outlook for fish streaming below waterline, framed by bending horizon. Here among transient grass, clinging to drifted sand, apex sun drowns human failure and unfulfilled dreams. What abides with unlimited breath will one day yield to earth, but not under Argus-eyed feet, and our need to bulletproof this beauty. And this is a variation on a cento. A cento means patchwork. And often what you do is, as many of you know, is to take someone else's lines of poetry and mix them all up and create a new poem. I decided to take some of my own lines and rewrite several of my own poems.
You're doing a new piece.
And yeah, and so I took phrases. It's called Unlocking Messages. By prayer and ancestry, I trace the contours through way-worn memories, keep score as if my life depends on it, not by some magical thinking each day into the next. Such wild audacity to shake off or sweep away spreading twilight in faded robes I've gotten used to, with no door, no way to turn back between the cracks. And like Persephone, springing from memory's shadow, dance with gray sky. And this next one is called Nippon Memories, and I decided to write it after finding a doll that my father had brought back from occupied Japan. Nippon Memories. 1. The doll with pale porcelain face and thick black hair wears a kimono woven the color of persimmons neatly cinched with yellow sash. My father brought back other mementos from occupied Japan, like the cloisonné jars and lacquered bowls, ivory Natsukis, and chopsticks from Kyoto that filled a glass cabinet in the living room. He also returned with 2 warrior swords, a military pistol, stories of beauty and destruction, sake and blood, in the land of the rising sun, where kamikaze honor and geisha girls played their roles with conviction and grace, extinguished in a country crushed like fallen blossoms. 2. Decades later, I traveled to Tokyo, where stylish dresses and designer shoes have replaced silk robe and brocade obi, fluttering fan and wood-soled geta. No longer the charred and mangled city destroyed by fire bombs, sleeping dragons wake as glass and steel high-rises. Compact cars crawl from light to light. Pedestrians pack every inch of sidewalk, and the bullet train sprints from town to town. I drink the warm rice wine, eat the Kobe beef with chopsticks held in place by my right thumb and between index and middle fingers, the way my dad taught me, sit shoeless on a straw tatami at a low table where tradition bows but doesn't surrender. 3. Pig-bottomed monkeys swing and climb among dense trees along a narrow road, twisting 48 times past stone cliffs and tiny altars to ancient gods, blessing the route to Nikko, a montage of Shinto shrines, painted red and verdigris, their pitched roofs outlined with carvings of mystic apes and a sleeping cat. Beating drums from inside a sanctuary keep rhythm to chanting and clapping white-robed priests, keepers of centuries-old customs in the sacred place. Its solace permeates the hills, tile roofs, time between time, contributes more seeds planted by prayer and ancestry in the resurrected landscape. 4. In Kyoto, I find the old beauty of pre-Japan with musky wooden buildings pinched together on cramped streets, fronting stalls with fresh fish nestled on glittering ice chips, costly melons, lemony fruits, and pear-like nashi. I wander through the city rich with cultural treasures and imperial history, exempt from bombing, to look for markets where my father might have learned about the art of enamel decorating, or bought my doll, now tucked away in a tissue-lined box. Perhaps he heard the bee-like drone of monks with their nasal om, then left with a felt rush of forgiveness, the astonishment of peace.
Yeah.
And 3 more from my new book, which happens to be for sale right there.
Are they your last 3, or is it do we get more?
Oh,
Just curious.
well, I'm happy to time according to your
Well,
desires.
we do have time because 3, depending on how short. I mean, you can have 5, 10 minutes. You're all awesome. So whatever you need.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, well, this one, maybe some of you have experienced this. In a way, I hope you haven't, because it would be a sad story, but this is not supposed to be very sad. They arrived soon after the memorial service, and the family house sold. Forwarded magazines, store flyers, and catalogs permanently acquired my address with their names.
Yes.
This daily dross pursues those who have transcended worldly things, hearing aids, and playing golf with the spry, well-coiffed in an opulent retirement paradise, and otherworldly, a tasteful trifold promoting cremains buried at sea, or a stylish mausoleum rising above rolling lawns under a perpetual sun shining over my loved ones and me. I've gotten used to the 3 of us here in my small apartment. I've added another can for waste paper and allow extra time to read or rip what isn't mine. It's comforting when I'm reminded that Mom and Dad, only a stamp away, haven't really left. They show up most days about 2 o'clock when I decide what's worth keeping. In fact, that happened today. I have a really nice catalog now to read. And you Chicago people, we're all Chicago people if we're living here at this moment, will recognize this type of house, I'm sure. My brother's who's here tonight with his lovely wife and a close friend of ours. And I basically grew up in this bungalow we visited so often. My grandparents' bungalow. I've been away too long. The house looks different, not the one with darker brown brick, tidier yard, and freshly painted front door. There's a new garage filling half the narrow lot reaching back to an alley where a man summoned housewives to bring their dull knives for sharpening. Sometimes a chant for rags and iron came from another man, pushing a cart filled with discards he would haul away and sell. It's doubtful that the present occupants have a dartboard in the basement, a Ringer washing machine, and shelves of homemade dill pickles. The chances of canasta or poker played on a formica-topped kitchen table are also unlikely. Maybe the back door still opens to a porch where people drink iced tea on summer days and eat and set out jars of captured fireflies at night. I'm surprised that no one has dismantled this neighborhood to build bigger houses, plant every garden with exotic trees, or erect imposing wooden fences. The block seems a little familiar, but there are no voices I recognize. The street runs one way now. So tell me what you're thinking.
More.
We want more. We want more. We want more.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you can have one more time for your speech, darling. Go ahead.
Okay, this is based on a story that I was told. The beginning of the end. Contrary to local chatter, Popsicle Pete's drinking habit might not have been the reason he backed his ice cream truck over Franny Kaminsky one summer afternoon 50 years ago. The day was hot and we clutched our sweaty nickels on a slow trot toward a banana bomb pop when the scene changed from noisy anticipation to Franny screeching on the bubbling asphalt at the corner of First and Maple. Neighbors ran out screen doors, Pete looked crazed, and kids stared in gap-toothed curiosity and horror. Maybe his foot slipped off the brake, or he tried to park closer to the curb, but we could feel frozen treats intoned by a tinkling bell begin to melt away. All we could do was wait for the ambulance. Imagine what Pete told the cop, not knowing then there'd be no more cold salvation freeze-framed in childhood. All right, I'll read a couple more minutes.
There's a Toastmasters.
Encore. I remember the lilac's June perfume, the clicking and shushing of a push mower in early May. The first frothy drifts of December rolled into a snowman with cedar bow arms and button grin. I remember Father's stories of Bronco Bill the Sailor, Elizabeth Kokunchka-Kite, and Grandpa Snazzy, told with gravel bass and trilling voices, and bedtime adventures he would chisel and sculpt. I want like Arachne to spin a web, pull taut the threads to capture echoes unraveling through time, and like Persephone springing from memory's shadow, renew lavender tales that never fade, to make angels in winter's first snow. And I'll read this as my last but not least. And some of you will recognize some of the references here, I think. Road trip. And I don't suggest you do what I did, which was to write a lot of this while I was driving. Road trip. Well, actually, they never said you couldn't hold a pencil.
Just
my
get
phone.
text.
Road trip. 3 hours down the highway between St. Paul and Chicago, my life songs begin to sing on the radio. Chances are, to hound dog, the miles slip into years while Wisconsin bison stand in snowy corn stubble. And another station advises women to be good role models for their daughters, who should learn to treat their husbands right. A donation of $14 will buy a book on how to create domestic harmony. Which brings me back to this oldie station and the soundtrack of my youth, speaking in Father Knows Best voices, saccharine with myth and promises. Farms fade into prefab houses, spreading like buckthorn over rolling prairie. And there's that song, Country Roads, but that's West Virginia, not the Midwest F. Scott Fitzgerald tried to forget. A store offering naughty novelties begins the end of radio signals, tracing my way home.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my darling, did you reveal and the yelling to her ear. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that was loud enough. Give it up one more time.
As she leaves the stage, followed from her surprise. I won't, well, I'll say a little bit about future features, because I normally do this at the absolute end, but I'm going to have a few open micers. Annabella, you'll be next. But I might as well mention a few of them, because in 2 weeks, we have Paul Ryan as a feature. No, not the politician Paul Ryan. But yes, about Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan's back.
And it's actually going to be a late night thing, so people are thinking, oh, I don't know if I can get here at 7. It's 9 to 11.
Well, hey.
Well, hey, that's going to be triple plus awesome for everybody, so he's going to be up. But then the next one is the first one that's in May, and that's in May 13th, on a Wednesday. We've got the craziest combo. We've got 2 foreigners. Originally from Nashville, who's now from Alberta, Canada, C. Robin Gort, and from Leeds, we've got somebody from London coming here with Oz Hardwick. And so we've got 2 phenomenal foreigner performers, and that's, I'm like, oh, I'm so triple plus thrilled about that one. At the end of May, we have GPA. The Poetic on Sub, along with Roberta Miles, and I would tell you about June dates, but because I don't have the schedule in front of me, I couldn't tell you them off of my head, but what I can tell you is you can always go to www.chaoticarts.org/thecafe, click on 2015 schedule and get the whole lowdown on who's coming up, and if you want to know anything, you always bug me on Facebook or on email or anything, or just come here in 2 weeks, man. I really look forward to hearing you and see you all for a great